Hi, and welcome back to Rate That Album, a back and forth album review of sorts between myself, Joe Fremming, and my cohort, Paul Muad'Dib. Paul, how are you doing?
I need one more night before we do this podcast.
Paul, I need you to take me home. So this is an interesting choice. This week I picked as a revenge album on Paul, Phil Collins' third solo album, No Jacket Required, based off, I got the idea off an old Patton Oswalt joke about like how when he became a parent, to make sure his kids rebelled and did the right thing, he was going to have only one album in the house, and that would be, you guessed it, No Jacket Required by Phil Collins.
Brilliant.
And,
I love Patton.
So I picked this as like, a revenge thing, we'll listen to another bad album after that god-awful Amanda Lear album. And then something weird happened, Paul.
Yep.
After 39 years on this planet, I realized I fucking love Phil Collins. It was the damnedest thing. Like, I'm listening to this album, and I'm like, whoa, wait, what? And then, like, I'm going into the Genesis, post-Gabriel Genesis, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, these songs that I grew up hating, I'm realizing I really like them now. It's fucking weird, man.
So, this is the part where I tell you that I didn't hate this album.
You told me you went through something similar, right?
Yeah, I realized I had the joke with my buddies at my old job. I'd be like, you're getting old when you start to enjoy Phil Collins.
Yeah, but it was really weird. I'm just like hit after fucking hit. Like, and the weird thing is, he hit his songwriting stride in his 30s.
It's got to be somewhere around there.
Early to mid 30s.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because again, he was with Genesis, and I know a lot more about early Genesis than I do post, like Gabriel Genesis, than now post Genesis, or post Gabriel, I should say. And during that time, he was just the backup singer with on the drums, and that was kind of his big focus. And then when Peter left, they kind of laid it on him to do the vocal stuff. And he must have been paying attention, because the guy's a fucking genius.
Hell yeah. So we jokingly referred this privately as one of his divorce albums. It really isn't. So let's go. This comes out in 1985. 10 years after Gabriel leaves Genesis, again, everybody involved in this band, their career trajectory makes absolutely no sense to me. None. Because I think it's like in 85, like Gabriel releases So, his huge, and Phil Collins is just killing it. Like, he's inspired, he's like the number one guy in the 80s. He's on Miami Vice.
Yeah, he's on Miami Vice, man, which was the show in the 80s, mind you.
Yeah. So, just a brief history. He goes in, he wanted to make more of a poppy dance album with this. Because, if you listen to his first two solo albums, he's pretty fucking angry. Divorce albums are pretty, I went back and listened to those, and I was like, I really wish I listened to these after my divorce, because no other album I was listening to at the time registers the amount of rage he has.
Oh, honestly, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. People give here's the thing, people give Taylor Swift a lot of shit for doing these revenge songs. She's just carrying the torch that Phil Collins started.
Yeah. Dude, you honestly, guys, if you ever want to listen to some great revenge music, listen to the first two Phil Collins solo albums, because that is what they are, and it's vicious.
Listen to the song "I Don't Care."
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's
watch the video, he's just snarling like he's Johnny Rotten.
Yeah, he is just going fucking ballistic on it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So So he goes in the studio to record this. He gets backing vocals on some tracks as Peter Gabriel and Sting. He doesn't later on. It's not really one of his favorite albums, even though I believe it's his highest charting album, his most successful solo album.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the album is The Most 80s Story Ever.
Go on.
Him and Robert Plant are going to the Pump Factory in New York and denied a table for dinner because, you guessed it, Phil Collins was not wearing the right kind of jacket.
Oh, right.
So not only does he magnificently throws his ex-wife under the bus for 2 albums, then he throws under this New York restaurant. You realize you did not want to piss this guy off in the 1980s.
No. Phil was dealing with some rage issues, man. I think the birth of anger management came from Phil Collins, honestly.
And it's very unsuspecting. You look at him, he's like this short, bald guy who's like literally like in every interview, he's like the happiest dude on earth. And then you listen to these lyrics and his spiteness in the 80s. It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. You don't fuck with the Collins, man. I mean, it's straight up, which is interesting because we've talked about this before. Like you got 2 British English bands. You have Pink Floyd and you have Genesis, right? And both are snarky. No one gets along, and yet they are cordial with each other in Genesis. And in Pink Floyd, these guys can't even get in the same room together.
Pink Floyd's made up of all Tony Banks.
Dude, Tony Banks, god damn that guy. He's such a fucking prick.
I love him. I love it. But so, and this is another thing that my realization listening to this album is because growing up, a lot of my anger with Phil Collins came with the sound that people imitated from him. Most notably would be Pink Floyd. When we discussed that at length with A Momentary Lapse of Reason. Mm-hmm. The people who mimicked his sound, I hate. His sound works for him. It just doesn't work for anybody else.
Yeah, this is, Phil Collins to me, we've talked about those bands that you don't cover, right? Those people. And Phil Collins to me is one of those things. Like, Phil Collins is good at being Phil Collins because it's Phil Collins things, but don't try to emulate it because you will fuck it up.
Yeah. Well, his vocals are very specific. Mm-hmm. And his drumming is very specific. It's very specific to him. So it's really, it's a fool's errand to try to mimic him, I think.
Well, and I read in a Rolling Stone article years ago that they said that Phil Collins is the best, is better at being Peter Gabriel than Peter Gabriel is. And that's kind of it. Like, those are 2 things you don't, like, no, you never need to do a Peter Gabriel cover, and you never need to do a Phil Collins cover because those guys nailed it first time. So stop it.
Well, that's another weird thing. Like, so as I listened to this, and then I listened to his first few solo albums, and I listened to Gabriel's solo albums, and it's weird how these guys kind of seem to influence each other.
Yes.
Through those albums,
because they were doing shit together, right?
Yeah. I mean, Gabriel's on this album.
Yeah.
So this was quite an emotional journey for me, realizing I love Phil Collins, Paul. It was.
Yeah, your revenge trick didn't work, sir. Just like the Flaming Lips Sparkle Horse song, "Revenge." It always backfires, buddy.
All right. So, Paul, let's talk about what works, what doesn't work on this. And then I have a side topic I want to go off of, too, when we get to it.
Oh, I love that. So, for me, what works is a lot of this album, honestly. There's a couple of songs I don't care for, like Who Said I Would. Inside Out has a fucking sax solo that can go straight to hell. Where that thing came from. We Said Hello Goodbye. One of the things I dislike about this album, because there's Studio, fucking brilliant. Yeah. One More Night.
It's a nonsense song, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. One More Night. Don't Lose My Number. Doesn't Anyone Stay Together Anymore? Take Me Home. I mean, there's a lot of great packed on this. But one of the things that I find odd on this is I think the Gabriel influence of musical switches, and I don't think it works as well for Phil as it does for Peter. There's some interesting like tonal shifts that I felt were like, that was an interesting choice on some of these songs. But I also look at some of these songs where I think Phil knew, like, hey, these are the hits, these are the filler. Well, I can do whatever I want in the filler and just kind of have fun. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah, and he said after this, like, it didn't feel like a him album. Like, I think he was just trying to do things that were different, and he wasn't really happy with it, with how it turned out. So I think, like, even Phil would agree with you on that.
Oh, awesome. So I nailed it. Sweet.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, it's not his favorite of his solo albums. And
well, again, when you listen to all of Phil Collins' works, it's shocking to hear that The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway was his favorite Genesis album.
Yeah, that just kind of goes to, like, how cool of a guy he is, and that's another frustrating thing.
This dude's fucking cool.
God, and so so, you know, what worked for me too was Susudio, even though, like, you know, it's such a such a nonsense song, but, like, those drums and, like, the production, it nails you, it hits you. Long, Long Way to Go, where it just stops.
Yeah.
Jarringly stops. Was like, it worked for me. You know, One More Night is such a beautiful little ballad.
Yeah, it is.
Doesn't Anybody Stay Together Anymore is a good song. Yeah, that was like his one divorce song, and that was mostly because he started realizing all his friends were getting divorced now. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the club, Brother Phil.
Right.
And Take Me Home is, for me, I just love how it builds.
Oh, that song is like, yes, the way that the song builds and builds and builds and builds, it's fucking damn near a perfect template for, like, how to build a song properly.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And then this kind of gets me on so I was researching this, and I vaguely remembered Phil Collins worked with a hip-hop group in the early 2000s. So, Paul, I went down this rabbit hole that you were also quite startled by. So I remembered it. So Bone Thugs and Harmony did a song called Home. Mm-hmm. 2003 it comes out. It samples the hook from Take Me Home. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow. And then, like, I watched the official video, and it turns out the group flew to Geneva, Switzerland to get Phil Collins in the video. And then I went down this other rabbit hole, and it turns out, like, in the early 2000s, hip-hop fucking loved Phil Collins. In the late 90s to the early 2000s, DMX samples In the Air Tonight. You know, Eminem rhymes about Phil, you know, the urban legend of Phil Collins watching the guy watch the other man drown to death and writing in the air, which is one of my favorite fake urban legends.
Oh, it's so brilliant. So brilliant.
And so then all of a sudden I come across a thing called Urban Renewal, and it's a tribute album to Phil Collins by hip-hop artists. And Phil Collins is talking, and he's doing an interview, and he's shocked when he finds out who is it? Ice-T is doing an interview, and somebody asks him about his Phil Collins records, and he's basically like, "Yeah, and you don't shit on Phil Collins." And Phil Collins is watching this like, "What the hell?" So all these bands, or all these hip hop artists, like, love them, and they end up putting out a tribute album to Phil Collins. And the one I shared for you was one of the most surprising things I've ever seen is a cover of Susudio by Old Dirty Bastard.
And it's good. You know, I got to say something about ODB now that we're talking about ODB. ODB has some of the best covers ever.
Oh, have you heard him and Macy Gray do Don't Go Breaking My Heart?
Brilliant. His post one after he died was Why Don't You Build Me Up, Buttercup? So brilliant. So brilliant. Yeah, no, ODB, man. That guy was awesome. And going back to the video that you sent me, because we do talk a little bit behind the scenes, and you showed me some of this stuff, and you're like, what is this when you're going down the rabbit hole? I thought the funniest part of that Bone Thugs and Harmony video was that Phil was like, had like a fucking gangsta hat and was like bopping his head behind them. And it was just the most awkward thing. And then it cuts to like the sample part, and he's walking through, and he just looks like an utter badass in this fucking video singing Take Me Home. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh yeah. It was wild, like discovering like all it, and like back to that like Lil Kim covers In the Air Tonight. Kylis covers I Don't Care Anymore, and it's produced by the Neptunes. Like, what the hell is happening?
I don't know. All I could tell you is that okay, Phil Collins is a fucking badass, and we talk about it. And I'll bring it up here in this thing where we call him Brother Phil. Phil is also a Freemason, so like he's just had like the weirdest, like most interesting life. Like if I could sit down and interview him for even 15 minutes, I imagine my whole head would be fucking blown.
Yeah, it's a weird trajectory because especially if you think of, throughout the 90s, like everybody just like. Genesis is like kind of like a laughing stock, and Phil Collins is like that's at that time would be considered what dad rock.
Dad rock, oh yeah, it's dad rock. Yeah.
And so like you got like the snarky grunge, and then whatever indie people just like thumbing their nose, and hip hop artists are like, fuck that, these songs are awesome.
They got it. I will say that they got it before, but other than the rest of us, right? They were just, yeah. I mean. Again, it takes white people to get in their almost 40s before they start to appreciate Phil Collins.
It's amazing just how, like how many catchy songs this fucker had. Like,
yeah, like, yeah. Like I said, after even in Genesis, after Gabriel left, I like. Duke is an amazing album, and Abacab. Like, listen to Abacab, and you are gonna hear like even in Duke, there's a song that you go, "Yep, that's where it started."
Yeah. Well, what was it? Was it Duke that had Misunderstanding on it?
You had Misunderstanding and Heat Haze. Yeah. Yep.
And then like. Their self-titled had That's All, which has like one of the most amazing like piano grooves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's the other one that Abacab has? It's one of those songs where you just go, oh boy, God, which one was it? Was it the Man in the Corner? I think it was. Like it reeks of Collins. Like, yep, the direction that Genesis is gonna go here.
And good, I mean, I get, that's one of those things like you can't just stay in the shadow of the guy before you.
No. And I think it was brilliant of Banks and the rest of them to let him, Rutherford.
The rest of them was just that one other guy.
Yeah, Rutherford. Well, there was a few, but remember, then there was three.
Yeah, their successful era, it was basically the three of them,
It was just the three, and basically all they were just extended, like B-sides of Phil Collins solo albums that were still giant hit makers.
But it works. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching these videos, and they're hilarious, and I don't understand what's going on.
No.
Like for instance, the video for "Take Me Home," a serious song, and it's just it looks, he's wearing a Pepsi T-shirt. Misunderstanding. He's driving around with a Hawaiian shirt and what?
Yeah, it's just.
No shame in him just being a plain dude,
No,
a boring white guy. Yeah. He made being a boring white guy an acceptable thing.
Like, I think if all white people were Phil Collins, there wouldn't be any problems in the world.
Oh hell yeah, because he's a decent guy.
Because he's a decent dude. I'm sure he's got some anger issues, but who doesn't? Like,
unfortunately, most white people are Tony Banks.
Fuck that guy. I know he's your favorite, but my God, every time I listen to him, I'm just like, oh, here we go. It's amazing when I listen to him in interviews because you just go, yep, here's Tony.
Yeah, he was never happy with anything.
Nothing. You know, I had this amazing piano piece and then I had to go put lyrics over it. What the fuck, dude?
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is hilarious that you thought this was going to be a revenge album. I'm going, I like this album. What
it totally backfired me. It actually led me to fall in love with Phil Collins. Like, after I listened to this, I started listening. Like, I've made my own Spotify mix of like the songs I like from the albums that I've been listening to nonstop. Like, I'm just been like, holy shit! Like, it was like last summer when I finally listened to like the Peter Green Fleetwood Mac, and I'm like, holy shit! Why have I been like not listening to this for so long?
Right. No, absolutely. Like there is a thing. Like once you get in the Phil, it becomes like it's. You're in the Phil, and it just happens to everyone. I think like this is just something that's going to happen to you in your life.
We should also mention that Phil Collins has won an Academy Award.
For what?
It was a song for like a soundtrack. I just remember he beat out South Park when they did their movie.
Wasn't it for one of the Disney movies?
I think it was like Tarzan or something. Maybe?
I think it was Tarzan. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think he got an Academy Award for Tarzan, which I think was a Cyndi Lauper cover.
I mean, just, Phil Collins Academy Award. I can't believe
the dude has accolades, man. That's all I gotta say. Like, I don't care. You know, it's kind of like when I love William Shatner. Eventually, we're gonna get to his album, but he has a song called "Has Been," and you know, it's like talking about these people. You know, they shit on these people. No one that's ever done anything in their life just shits on them for whatever, and it's like Phil Collins doesn't give a fuck.
No. Yeah, it was for the movie Tarzan, the song "You'll Be in My Heart."
You'll be in my heart. Yes.
Which the creators of South Park then started mocking him by making a sliding hill on the show called Phil Collins Hill.
Yes, they did.
And the snow makes his face.
Spiteful, but good.
Oh God.
It's like just looking at like Phil's just interesting. And again, you watch interviews of him, and he's just the chillest dude.
Yeah, he's just some guy.
He's just something, and he doesn't pretend to be anything else. Like he just is a dude. He's just a guy who's like, I just happen to make fucking amazing songs. Like
I just happen to rule the '80s with #1 hits.
Yeah, but I'm gonna
you can't be that chill and be the guy who wrote "Take Me Home."
But or the guy that wrote the massive revenge song. God damn it, you said it before. Don't care anymore.
Don't care anymore.
What the fuck? Like, you can't be chill. Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, no, I take it out in the studio and I go home and I'm fine. All right.
Oh.
Phil Collins says the secret to life.
Oh yeah, he's got something, man. I don't know, but yeah. So this ultimately, my revenge pick blew up in my face and made me a huge Phil Collins fan.
So what songs didn't you like on the album? Let me ask.
The ones that you brought up, Inside Out, I wasn't a huge fan.
Fuck Sax Solos.
Yeah. Who Said I Would? Like, some of these songs just start blending into one another. You know, so
Yep.
I mean, like you said, there's the fillers and then there's the hits. Like, some of the fillers, long way to go, just because it was really good, and then it just ends abruptly, which it's not even like the end of a side of a record, which is really like what the Beatles did with I Want You, She's So Heavy. Like,
yep.
It's the third fucking song.
I know. It's a great song, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, I literally thought like my Spotify went out. Oh
yeah, no, I think it's a Absolute brilliant album. I would encourage people to actually go back and look at some of his earlier stuff too. I mean, and I'm sure that we'll go back and because there's some Genesis I want you to listen to at some point. But no, I mean, welcome to the Phil Collins bandwagon. You're an old man.
It's all right. I'm gonna start wearing chinos all the time and golf polos. I'm just gonna embrace my middle age.
Yeah, get it done, buddy.
So Paul, would you recommend No Jacket Required?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, there's fillers on this, but my God, the highs are high, man. And you could sit there, you go be snarky and be like whatever. But I guarantee you, every one of those fucking people that said they hated this album and whatever, this was a guilty pleasure. Like there was people who gave it like one listen, like you did, and were like, "Fuck this," and I get that. But I think most people that shit on it are like secretly like, yeah, Phil Collins is a total guilty pleasure. Just own it. Just own it. Listen to the album and you'll be happier for it.
After I turned like 26, I decided there's no such thing as guilty pleasures. I'm just going to like what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this album, it just kind of floored me. And it also like, by the time we were recording this, I'm really getting into Phil Collins. And when DMX passed away, and then I had no idea he sampled In the Air Tonight, and I'm listening to that song. I'm like, holy shit! Like, that was another like hip hop just loves this guy. And
they do.
It's amazing. I love it.
I mean, again, they got it. I mean, you got to. I mean, there is shit there. I mean, the beats and shit are good. So yeah, there's a lot to sample. I mean, if you're a hip hop sampler, go through Genesis and Phil Collins' work, man. Like, sample the shit of it because there's a lot to do with it.
It was funny too. So I started every now and then I'll watch reaction videos, and like there's a lot of them for Phil Collins and Genesis. And I was watching this one for I Can't Dance, and the song starts going, and the person pauses like, this fucker's a liar. He can dance. He can sing. He's really good at both. I'm like, I get the singing, but it shows the clips of them like with their weird arm jerk and dance thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll give you 1 for 1 on that one.
Well, and remember, Land of Confusion, was covered. I forget the heavy metal band or the Disturbed. Thank you. Yeah, Disturbed. They fucking covered Land of Confusion. So yeah, that's a heavy metal band, and they like Collins. So it's all over the gambit. Like if hip hop's covering you and heavy metal's covering you, you're fine. Like just accept that it's good work, people.
Oh yeah, this was a fun journey for me, and yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. There's some duds on here, and from his interviews, it seemed like he was just kind of getting out into areas that he wasn't entirely, himself and comfortable with. But he tried it. Some of it didn't work. A lot of it did because he was one of the biggest names of the decade. It's weird see somebody hit like their commercial success like 10 years out, 15 years out of like the big break of their band.
So I'll admit this, I'm kind of a wrestling nerd, right? I haven't watched wrestling in years, but there's podcasts and things that I listen to like about behind, like I'm more interested in like what happened, like behind the scenes shit than it's so great. It's
the Macho Man stories, like when he bring his own towels on the road.
Yes.
Yes. Fucking touching my towels.
Don't be touching my towels. Look at the boots. Look at the man. Look at the boots. Look at the man.
Rise to the top.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some great stuff in the background, right? I mean, behind the scenes. So yeah, there's some amazing podcasts out there about that. Bruce Pritchard has some OSW review, but I bring that up because you got to look at people like DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. He didn't start wrestling till he was 38, the age when most people retire. He was a manager up to that point. And he became huge in WCW. He was one of the top baby faces. So, yeah, I mean, I love stories like this where someone just out of the blue, guys like hitting middle age. Okay, I'm hitting my prime now.
Yeah. Diamond Dallas Page, he'll always be one of my favorite as one of the biker dudes in Devil's Rejects who just takes down the family.
Yes. And I will totally, plug. I do DDP yoga. And I recommend everybody do it. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, isn't that something that helped Jake the Snake Roberts with his, get himself back in? Because there was that documentary where he was in pretty rough shape, and Diamond Dallas Page helps him on his road to recovery.
Diamond, yes, Jake the Snake and Scott Hall. He basically saved both those guys from death. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, if you want to know what led to Jake the Snake's medical issues, just look at the clip of the Honky Tonk Man hitting him with a real guitar, and he drops like a sack of bricks. Oh, that is painful to watch.
Yeah, it is painful to watch. Yeah, and then also, what is it? It's the Mick Foley documentary. Is it what's it called? The Mat or something? Beyond the Mat. When he starts talking about his cocaine and crack use and sleeping with like 3 hookers at a time. He had a rough life. Fun, but it fucked him up big time. And which sucks because actually, God, we're way off topic. He was supposed to be a booker for WWE when he started getting too old to wrestle, according to Vince McMahon, and they loved the way that his mind was, and they wanted to be a fucking a booker, and he just couldn't stay sober, and that's all because of Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah. It's he's back and he's in better shape now than he was for a while. Like, he was a hot mess.
But yes, so you'd recommend this album. I'd recommend this album. Your revenge album blew up in your face. Yeah,
it sure did. But that's all right, because at least we had an album to enjoy this time other than Amanda Lear.
We talked about Kiss. We talked about Gilmer. And really, every time we say it, like, how far can you go below Amanda Lear? And I know there's shit out there we're going to hit, but right now, that's the rock bottom for us, man. Like, again, you compare the Kiss album to that, I'll take that Kiss album 15 times a week, man. Put me on an island. If I had to choose between music from The Elder or Amanda Lear's Sweet Revenge, I would... I'd be on an island. Yeah, music to the Elder would keep me alive, man.
You'd just be sitting there crooning along to A World Without Heroes,
crying at the end. All right. So let's talk about what you got going on, buddy. What do you have going on?
We'll be coming back, I think, next week officially with our review of Red Dragon, and then following that up, my revenge thing, which I know will work because I already saw it and I hated it. Zack Snyder's Justice League.
I have gotten like 2 minutes into it so far.
It's for whatever faults there was with the 2017 Whedon version or whatever. Like, they're both bad movies. Like, one's just longer. They're like equally just as terrible. So. Yeah,
they need to just reboot. cut your losses, WB, and just reboot.
Yeah, you're rushing cinematic universe like Marvel within 2 movies. You're done. Like,
you're done. It was never going to work. It was never going to work. And you know what? If they had been smart and taken their time, they would have been great because there wouldn't have been any competition. You know, one year a Warner, a DC movies coming out, the next year Marvel movies coming out. It would have been a lot better. You know, it would have been amazing. It would have saved the fucking theater companies. It made them massive amounts of money. But you know, Warner Brothers had to be Warner Brothers, and they fucked it up. Yep. So, all right. Well, as of the recording of this one, a bunch of shit just went up on the Joe Down. So, Yeah, when you get off, you're going to see the Joe Down blew up today. When we're done talking. So that's good. All right. You ready for my album for next time?
Oh, hell yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. I'm sticking with the woman. And we're going to do someone that I love, that I think everyone should love. And it's Cyndi Lauper's debut album, She's So Unusual.
Oh, yeah. That's a good album.
It's a good album. It's a good album to review. So yes, I think I'm sticking with the ladies this round again.
We're sticking with the 80s.
Sticking with the 80s.
Everybody, Paul and I, we have our pink T-shirts and white overcoats on still. We're doing bumps in the bathroom to get us through these reviews.
And my hypercolor shirt's full of sweat.
And we're driving around in our Maseratis, it's
Fuck you, I got a Pontiac Sunbird. What are you talking about? So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do her debut album, which we'll talk about. I mean, talk about a hell of a debut album, man.
Yeah, it's weird. She had that big one, and then she kind of fizzled a little bit. Yes, and there's a lot to talk about how and why that happened. Well, I mean, she did team up with the WWF.
that's the rock and wrestling connection. She was huge into that. And I'll preface this by saying she was not what MTV and people were trying to market by the end. Like in the early years of MTV, there was some shit going on, there was a book that came out recently about like the shady shit that was going on, like them, they had like a quota of like for every black artist that's out there, we have to have so many white artists because they were trying to get into the suburbs. And she was a punk, and as punk started to die, she wasn't going to change. And that's part of what started to fizzle her out, was she wasn't going to change. And then when she finally started to change, well, people wanted Cyndi for Cyndi. It was, she was just basically stuck in a rock and a hard place. Yeah. She's
also relative to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes, she is.
Like a cousin or something.
Yes. She is a cousin, I believe, like distant cousin. But yep, I've heard that. Yeah, that is a thing. I highly doubt they ever met.
Really? I bet their paths are crossed, especially in the 80s. Come on.
Yeah. Well, maybe it could have. I mean, she was hanging around the WWF, and I think Ozzy was around the WWF at some point too, wasn't he?
I have no idea. Ozzy was in a lot of weird places in the 80s.
Remember the Alamo.
Yeah. Rip the head off that bat.
Yeah.
Rabies shots. Snorted the ants with Motley Crue. Like, he is talking about a weird decade for a man.
Just, guys, if you're ever in Texas, here's a rule of advice: do not get drunk and piss on the Alamo. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the world, you will not be okay.
Yeah, no, they will arrest you.
They will arrest you and ban you. It took pot in Japan for Paul McCartney. It took a piss for Ozzy in Texas.
You know who was never banned from a place? Phil Collins.
No, he keeps getting invited back. Well, not true. Not true. He didn't have the right jacket, Joe.
Oh yeah, he was ousted from the pump room with that Robert Plant. God damn it.
What the fuck is the pump room, man?
It's like, one of those like New York hot spots in the 80s.
Oh Christ! Hey, it just sounds like so pretentious. Like, let's go to the pump room.
Yeah. Do some bumps and blow.
It sounds like something that Family Guy would call Giggity's fucking bedroom, the pump room. Come on. Come into the pump room. Giggity, giggity.
Oh.
Joe, take us the fuck out, man.
I got nothing.
Fine. Joe, take me home.
Take. Oh.
'Cause I don't remember.
Joe Fred.